Today we are talking to Andrea. She's a baby sleep consultant, and thank you for coming on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
So let's just kind of talk about your background a little more, and obviously you have kids, but yeah.
Yeah, so I was actually a teacher before I had kids. And then I decided I was going to be home with my baby. I didn't realize how boring that would be for me. I'm kind of, all over the place. And then I was just there with this little baby that wasn't doing much and wasn't sleeping much. And I was like, hey, what am I going to do? And then, he wasn't sleeping. So I started looking online. I was like, sleep consultants, but all I could find was like $800, $1,000 to help you sleep. I was like, okay, I'm not going to pay anyone that, first of all, because we don't have that money. But also because if anybody else can charge you that much money, I can do it myself. And so I was like, I'm going to learn everything I can about sleep. And I did. And then I ran into like courses. So I took a few courses, I got certified. And then I started just helping moms that I knew. And because I was bored, I was like, I need to do something. And so I was like, I'm going to help you for free. I'll help you for free. Just give me a review. And then I helped more and more and more. And I kept getting like really good reviews. And I was like, you know what? Sleep, I'm really good at it, but it's not my thing. And I was talking to a friend. I said, I'm bored. And she's like, well, then take this skill and make something out of it. And I was like, no, I don't think sleep is my thing. She's like, Andrea, you have this. You're really good. You're getting hundreds of reviews. Just build on it. And I was like, okay, fine. So thank goodness for that friend because I went on Instagram and then I said, you know what? I'm going to make this a big thing. And so my goal was to, get to 10,000 followers so that I could have a link and then have people sign up for my consults. But it just kind of blew up and I just reached levels that I didn't think I could. And then I got super overwhelmed because I was having like client after client after client and I couldn't give them my full attention. What I used to do was work with a parent and a family for a whole week and just kind of help them and get them on their way. But then I was working with like two parents a day, every single day. And I was like, I can't do this. So I said, you know what? I'm going to write everything I know, everything I've been doing for the past 2 years and make it into a course. But the thing is, all courses out there are just very like generic. I don't know if you ran into any sleep courses. It's just kind of like a textbook, like read this, do this, do this, do this. And from working with parents one on one so much, I realized sleep is a lot more like you need to customize it a lot more. Babies are a lot more unique than we treat them. And so you said, I was like, okay, I'm going to find a coder that can help me make like an algorithm so that people can fill in a survey and tell me like their baby's age, their baby's personality, their like parental preferences on crying, their parental preferences on like, are you sleeping in the same bed right now or not? And then once they fill out that survey, a course will come out and it will help them kind of like if they were working one on one with me, but automated because I wasn't able to work with as many people. And so I took off 3 months and I worked on that just like day and night. Also, I was pregnant with my second, so I was kind of going crazy. But then that course released and we got so many sales and so many happy customers and so many happy families. And I was able to sell it for so much cheaper, which has always been a priority for me and my husband, is to be affordable because we couldn't pay those $800 back when we really needed sleep. And so to sum up everything, I went from not having a job and being bored to creating a product that a lot of parents can affordably get that is customizable to their own situation to get more baby sleep. And then it's grown. We've had other products come out, a newborn course, a toddler course, troubleshooting guides, like little freebies for what do we even have, like early wake ups, different little things that you can run into. It's a whole business now. My husband quit his job and helped me and now we run it together since the pandemic basically.
Wow. Wow, that's fantastic. Well, so your top course then is more of that age range of like 3 months to 24 months. Obviously, there's a lot of sleep regression during that time. And occasionally, there's potty training, like right around 2 years, right? So, and then some people are doing the early potty training where they,
I don't know, bless their hearts.
you know,
I
at
couldn't.
3 to 6 months, they're like, all right, I'm holding you over the toilet. Time to go potty. Like, TJ.
Yeah, I met someone with her 8 month old and I was like, oh, is she okay? She's like, yeah, she has to go potty, hold up. And I was like, okay. She went potty, came back and was happy. And I was like, okay, well, I
Well,
love diapers. We keep our kids till they're as long as I can. I'll keep them in their diapers because I hate going to the park and then you get there and they're like, I gotta go potty. You're like, all right, let's pack up. Let's go to the nasty porta potty or let's go back home. I love diapers. I am a fan of diapers as long as possible. I don't know about you.
the poop changing ones are just the ones I'm not a fan. Like I'm very excited to be on the potty and like
for the poop part.
away from that part. But it wakes them up when they, if they've it wakes them up, or if they wet the bed, then you have all of that fun. Or when your kids are sick. So
Not fun.
yeah. So what are kind of the top three tips, or the most common problems that someone between 3 to 24 months is going to face? Obviously, your course is affordable, so buy the course. But
Right, no, but I mean, some people don't need my course, and that's something else I've been really like passionate about. I don't want to trick people into buying my course. People will email me all the time like, "Oh, hey, I can't do this and this." And I was like, "You don't need my course. Just move bedtime 1 hour later earlier. That's all you need to do, and that's fine." I want my course for people who really, they have a sleep habit that they can't get rid of. Baby's up like 5 times a night. They have no idea where to start, or they just feel alone and they don't know what to expect about baby sleep. That's what my courses are for. My courses are to like help you understand what baby sleep is, because there is a science to it, but then also help you get to know your own baby and figure out their own needs. um, so top three tips, if I was going to summarize: one, get to know your baby, right? Because some babies like to, they run hot. So you need to know that your baby needs cooler PJs. And I know that sounds dumb, but so many babies don't sleep because they're too hot or because they're cold. And one sibling to the other, one could run hot and one could run cold. And then you're like going crazy. You're like, I sleep train, nothing's working. And the one thing is environment. Like my 3-year-old cannot sleep if there's not a humidifier. And you would think like, no, he can't. But no, we moved and we forgot to put a humidifier. He didn't sleep for months. And they're like, oh my gosh, humidifier. And then he went back to sleep all night. So first thing, get to know your kid, their preferences, their environment, their sleep, sound, because some kids do like white noise, some kids don't. So just spend time troubleshooting with your own kid, getting to know their preferences, how they act during the day. If they cry a lot, what does that mean? Get to know their cries, right? That's number one tip. Number two tip is get to know yourself. And I know it's because it's kind of sounding a little bit hubby jibby, but I was gonna say get to know your own preferences. Like if you're enjoying nursing baby to sleep and still nursing them twice a night, and that works for you, then accept that. Just take that. Whatever works for you works for you. You don't have to cut anything just because someone else's kid is sleeping all night. So get to know what works for you. Now, if you're nursing to sleep and that doesn't work for you and it worked for your sister, that's okay too. You can get rid of nursing to sleep if you're not okay with it. So, first, get to know your baby, what they prefer. Second, get to know what's sustainable for you. And then seek help obtaining like a match between the two of them. There's a really famous, really popular sleep trainer out there, but she doesn't work for everybody, right? You have to find someone that can match with you. And I'm not saying you need to pay someone to help you. Maybe who helps you is your friend that has the same values as you, same kids as you. But really try to find someone who understands you, who's going to give you the advice for emotional support as well, because sleep training isn't just like, okay, put them in their crib and come back after 15 minutes. It's also understanding, you're exhausted. You feel guilty about this. Let's talk about that. So find a good match for you if you're not sure where to start. Some tips when you're in the midst of it: one, make sure schedule is right? Babies and adults cannot sleep if schedule is not right. The basic, I'm not going to go into the science of sleep, but the basics of sleep is your circadian rhythm has to match your push to sleep, right? When you wake up, you start making adenosines, and those are pushing you towards sleep, and you make more and more and more. And usually, if you're exhausted an adult, you drink some coffee like me, and that kind of quiets them down, but it doesn't get rid of them. It just kind of bunches them up. That's why when the caffeine runs out, you come into a crash because they've just been bunched up and you're like, right, you have all these adenosines that have been building up. But baby sleep is similar. You build up sleep pressure and then you release it with a nap. You build up sleep pressure enough to release it with a nap. If you release it too much with a nap, then they have a hard time falling asleep, right? So that's why sometimes we need to go back and say, okay, cut the nap, whatever. Anyways, basics of that. Just understand the basic of science. You need to have push to sleep, but you also have to have a rhythm because your body creates melatonin in rhythms. Second is environment, darkness, and in the cool and quiet. And some people say, like, well, I don't want my kid to be used to that because I want him to be able to fall asleep wherever. And to that, I say, okay, well, that's up to you. But optimally, humans physiologically sleep better in dark, cool, and quiet. A third tip, let me think. Just be as consistent as you can, and then recognize that when you're not consistent, you're not going to have great sleep. I have parents being like, when I travel, they don't sleep well. When they're sick, they don't sleep well. What can I do? It's like, that's just life. Do you sleep well when you're sick? No. Now, the more consistent you are, the better you'll sleep. The more consistent you are with everything, the better you'll eat, the better you'll sleep, the less stressed you are. It's just human nature. So just stick to the basics and then go on for that. Sorry, I talk a lot and very fast, but anything else that you wanted to know?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty consistent. Like if you have a sleep routine and you're going, you're in bed every time about the same time, you're gonna, take that routine and you're gonna wake up at a similar time, right? And then if you're someone who needs caffeine at a certain hour of the day, that's that you've trained your body. Like I need my
Yep.
caffeine first thing in the morning, or I need my caffeine, at 10 a.m. Like that's
Yep.
if I don't have that at that point, like
Your
I'm
body
I
expects it.
crash. Right. Your body expects that based on what you're teaching it. And so I mean kids are the epitome of that because
Oh, yeah.
you like if you don't recognize that holidays now are around your child's nap schedule, like you you might as well just give up, like because the amount of time that you're going to try and spend making sure that their cranky attitude is not because you tried to put them to sleep too late or you
Yeah.
tried to put them to
Yeah.
sleep too early, and you got to make those decisions of like it's a couple years, right? Like it's some period of time and then it's going to get easier
It
with
does. It does. And it feels like it's never going to get easier, especially when it's your first, and especially if no one else has kids that are sensitive. Because some babies are not sensitive and they're on the go and they're fine. But sometimes it just feels like this will never end. But it was cool because we traveled last week. We went to my sister-in-law's wedding, and my 5 and 3-year-old did just fine. For the first time, they like acclimated to the time change. They were able to stay up for the wedding. They slept in the next day. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what we've been waiting for. Of course, my 1-year-old was a wreck, but you know,
you can't do anything because that like especially if so you were talking about travel and like you can train kids with travel, but you have to expect that the travel is going to be a nightmare. Like deciding to go to Hawaii with a 3 month old, like I knew that travel was going to be horrible. I didn't expect that all night, that
yeah,
all night we were going to lose that entire night. Like I showed up in Hawaii and I'm like, oh my God, my throat is so sore. Like I feel sick. Like
nope,
sitting
you're not
here,
gonna sleep.
because no night, no sleep.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I do have an ebook to help you travel, and travel tips and packing tips. I have a whole like packing list for baby because that was really overwhelming for me the first time we traveled with a baby. But ultimately, what I say is, you know what? Just don't expect anything. Don't expect sleep. Plan for the best, prep them for the best, but do not expect to sleep when you're traveling.
yeah. Well, and it's just you're gonna go through that where you see like oh they did really great one trip, right? Because we've been taking them on trips, and then they had a problem, and that's the same thing with sleep regression, right? Like where they're doing fine for 2 months or 4 months, and then all of a sudden they hit that sleep regression, and you're like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, yeah. My sister texted me this morning. She's like, her 7-month-old woke up at 12 and didn't go back till sleep at 3. She's like, what is this? Because she's never had this. And I was like, it just happens sometimes. It really does. Like sometimes you can pinpoint what it is, but sometimes they're going through something like developmentally. Maybe she'll talk more tomorrow. Maybe she'll start to stand up more tomorrow. Sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
Just like adults, like sometimes you just can't sleep for different things, for stress, for anxiety, for excitement. It's just, understanding that sleep is so, I call it a roller coaster instead of a train. And just understanding that it's like that, it makes everything a little bit less stressful, at least.
Yeah. So for people who are kind of in the midst of it, what are your top things that you tell them? Like, hey, this is what you really do need to do as a way to kind of cope with the new stress of no sleep.
Yeah, so that's something that people seek me out for. I'm very good at like understanding what's going on and helping you understand you, but we need to be able to talk about it. Like, what do you want? How are you feeling? But mainly, this is just a stage. And remember that every week is a different week. Anything you have right now, it's going to be changing in a week or two. Like even the ups, they're not going to be up forever. But just look at everything as a stage. Like last week, my baby was up literally all night coughing. And I was able to say, you know what, this is just this week. Next week she'll be better or worse, but it's just this week. We'll just handle everything a week at a time. And that gets easier as you get older and as babies get older. And you're like, oh yeah, like before we were up every 2 hours, now every 4 hours, you know. But that's the basic mindset I want people to have. Everything is just a stage. And there are things that you can take from each stage that are going to be good and things that are not so good. But you just have to go by stages and then by understanding. Something that really helps people will be like, what can I do? They're doing this. Is that normal? Just kind of ask yourself. For example, I have parents that are like, is it normal that, they stayed up really late after a party, even though we did everything the same? And I'll ask, do you personally ever get like so excited after a party that you can't fall asleep? They're like, yeah. And I was like, well, your baby is similar to you, right? So things like that.
They might have a teeny bit of you in that,
Yes.
like just a little smidge of DNA.
Yeah. Or things like that, like they're coughing all night and they won't sleep. It's like, well, would you sleep if you're coughing all night? They're like, no. And they're like, oh, okay. So kind of putting ourselves in their shoes very literally helps so much to get through sleep regressions and sleep issues. Now, something else I do want to say is there can be a lot of things wrong with babies that don't let them sleep. That's why so many people are like, I tried Fervor, I tried this program, but it didn't work. There's so many more things it could be. It could be their gut. It could be something wrong with their gut. They could have reflux. They could have an earache. They could have, so there's so many little things. So that can be overwhelming because you're like, well, it could be a million things. But also maybe that helps, like you're not a bad mom. You might just not have uncovered, or not a bad dad. You might just not have uncovered the right key to fix. And personally, with our third, from 8 months to 14 months, we couldn't figure out what it was. And I knew it wasn't scheduled because she was an independent sleeper and I know schedules. But I went to so many doctors and nobody believed me that there was something wrong. And I was like, she's literally waking up screaming every hour. There's something wrong. Luckily, after 6 or 7 months, we found someone who could help us. It wasn't like I'm very much Western medicine and she's a naturopath, but she's the only one that took it seriously and like actually fixed it. And it was crazy, but now she's fine. But just kind of know that there's a lot of things that could be wrong with a baby that doesn't let him sleep. It's not just about sleep training.
Yeah. Well, and then there's, when they, just like you were talking about, where maybe they have gas or there's so many things that they can kind of come in and just have, maybe it's a food, right? That they're not just processing well. Like, our
Yeah.
first was, could not do broccoli and cauliflower.
My baby can't do that either. Mm-mm.
Yeah, just made him too gassy and kept him up, like you start noticing those little things that you're
Yeah, you
eating.
get to know your baby.
Yeah, cool.
Cool.
That sounds like my cue. The background. I really appreciate you coming on, and you have anything else that you want to kind of wrap up with, or?
Awesome. Just for people to check me out on Instagram, I'm on there every day, not Sundays, answering questions, just kind of sharing my life. Because I don't have a perfect life, so I share about my struggles with the kid sleeps, and that usually helps people feel less alone. So just check out my story, and I do a lot of humor. So if you like memes and funny reels, just go on there. Baby Sleep Answers.
And that'll be in the link below. So check her out.
Awesome.